Dead America, Traverse City, Part 3. Day 0, plus 18. Kip swung his bat, the satisfying crunch of a zombie skull reverberating through the dimly lit opening. He stole a glance at his companions. Skylar's fierce determination etched on her face. Christian's sweat-soaked brow and labored breathing, betraying his exhaustion, and Marcus's eyes gleaming with a predatory intensity as he fired off 2 rapid shots from his handgun. "Watch your ammo, Marcus," Kip called out, making sure they conserved their resources in this seemingly endless battle. "Whatever," Marcus replied, smirking as he pulled the trigger, causing another creature to fall to the ground before him. The 4 survivors had become a well-oiled machine, seamlessly transitioning between offense and defense as they fought their way through the horde. However, Kip couldn't help but feel that they were losing ground. The number of undead pouring into the apartment complex from the parking deck seemed to multiply with each passing moment. "Guys, we need an escape plan," Kip thought aloud, his breaths coming in short gasps as he fended off yet another attacker. "Brilliant idea, genius," Skylar retorted sarcastically as she slammed her bat into a zombie's jaw. "Got any suggestions?" "Fire escape," Kip shouted, spotting a sign down the hallway. "We need to move. Now." "Looks like our only option," Christian grunted in agreement, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Fine. Lead the way," Marcus said, though his tone indicated that he didn't care for taking orders. Without hesitation, Kip sprinted toward the fire escape, his adrenaline pumping as hard as his legs. The others followed suit, plowing through the sea of undead with grim determination. Kip knew that every second counted. If they didn't make it out soon, they'd be overrun and torn apart. "Stay close," Kip yelled, narrowly avoiding a grasping hand as he lowered his shoulder and barreled into another zombie. He could feel the strain in his muscles, but knew that giving up wasn't an option. Kip reached the end of the hallway, already panting heavily from the relentless battle with the undead. The fire escape door stood before them, their last hope of breaking free from the hellish apartment complex. As he pushed it open, the chill of the outside air hit him, bringing a momentary relief to his sweat-soaked skin. "Move!" Kip yelled, urging his companions onto the metal staircase. They descended quickly, gripping the railing tightly as they descended down to the parking lot below, a handful of ghouls eagerly awaiting them. Skylar swung her bat with ferocity, smashing heads and shattering bones, while Marcus fired off more shots with his handgun. "Watch your back!" Christian shouted, barely giving Kip enough warning to dodge a clumsy zombie tumbling down the stairs behind them. The creature crashed into the stairs, narrowly missing Kip's feet. He gave it a stomp on the head for good measure before continuing on. As they reached the bottom of the stairs, Kip could see the parking lot was swarming with dozens of zombies. The noise from their struggle had attracted even more of the undead, trapping them in a sea of decaying bodies. "Damn it, we're surrounded," Marcus muttered, scanning the area for an escape route. His eyes were wide with fear, and Kip knew that if they didn't act quickly, panic would set in. Over there, Kip pointed to a building on the far side of the lot. A broken window large enough for them to squeeze through offered a potential lifeline. "We can make it if we run." "Are you insane?" Marcus snapped, his voice trembling. "We'll never make it through that mob alive." "Fine. Stay here then," Kip retorted, not waiting for a response before sprinting towards the building. He felt the weight of responsibility on him, but knew that indecision could be just as deadly as any zombie bite. Marcus hesitated for a moment before relenting, following Kip along with Skylar and Christian. They charged through the horde, adrenaline fueling their every move. Kip's heart pounded in his ears, drowning out the groans and snarls of the undead as he focused on reaching the safety of the building. "Almost there," Skylar shouted, her voice strained from exertion. "Keep going." Kip's lungs burned as he led the group through the shattered window, shards of glass crunching beneath their feet. The air inside the building was stale and musty, thick with the scent of mold and decay. The construction site offered little comfort. But at least they had temporary shelter from the undead horde. "Everybody okay?" Kip asked between wheezing breaths, his eyes scanning the dimly lit interior. Skylar nodded, her chest heaving, while Marcus leaned against a stack of wooden planks, cursing under his breath. "Could be worse," Christian grunted, wiping sweat from his brow. His words were punctuated by the guttural groans of zombies shuffling closer. "Stay sharp," Kip warned, his voice barely above a whisper. "There are still a few in here." He spotted an old work table nearby, cluttered with dust-covered tools. Among them, a hammer caught his eye. He snatched it up, feeling the weight of the cold metal in his hand. Kip knew it wasn't ideal, but it would have to do. "Follow me," he instructed, gripping the hammer tightly as he led the group deeper into the building. They moved cautiously, trying not to disturb the precarious balance of the unfinished structure. The first zombie appeared from behind a pile of debris, its mangled face twisted in a snarl. Kip didn't hesitate, swinging the hammer with all his strength. The impact reverberated through the handle, sending a jolt of pain up his arm as the creature crumpled to the ground. Two more emerged from the shadows, their limbs jerking unnaturally. "Watch my back!" Kip shouted, his heart pounding in his chest as he struck down another creature, blood and gore spraying across his face. "Got you covered!" Marcus called out, smashing a zombie's head with his bat, the sound of the skull cracking echoing through the building. "Keep moving," Skylar urged, her eyes darting around for any more threats. Kip led the group to the back door, each step feeling heavier than the last. The oppressive atmosphere seemed to cling to their skin, intensifying their exhaustion. Finally, he pushed the door open, revealing a narrow alleyway. "Wait," Kip whispered, motioning for the others to stay hidden as they peered out the front window. The groans and shuffling of the undead grew louder, accompanied by the nightmarish sight of zombies shambling past the building. Their haunting silhouettes cast eerie shadows on the walls that surrounded them. "Let's hope they keep going," Christian murmured, his voice tight with anxiety. "Stay down," Kip ordered, wiping sweat from his brow with a trembling hand. "We need to figure out our next move." The weight of responsibility settled back onto Kip's shoulders, heavy as the hammer in his hand. He knew they couldn't stay here forever, but for now, safety was measured in moments, not hours, and every second counted. "Should have gone to the grocery store first," Marcus grumbled, his attitude souring the already tense atmosphere. He folded his arms across his chest, his face tight with frustration. "Shut up, Marcus," Skylar snapped, her eyes blazing. "We're all trying our best here." "Really?" Marcus shot back, his tone dripping with condescension. "Because it seems like we're just running in circles." "Enough!" Kip cut in sharply. The heaviness of leadership hung on his shoulders, and he knew they couldn't afford infighting. "We still need food, but the store close to here is a no-go." He pulled out the map, his fingers tracing a path through the streets. As they huddled together, Kip's heart raced, his mind working furiously, calculating risks and strategies. He could feel the urgency of their situation pressing down on him, suffocating any semblance of hope. But he couldn't let fear take control. Their survival depended on it. "Here," Kip said, pointing to a location on the map. "The one on the far edge of town, about half a mile away. Seems to be our best bet. We'll have to move fast, though." "All right, fine," Marcus conceded begrudgingly, his eyes locked on Kip's determined face. They waited, holding their breath as the last echoes of shuffling footsteps faded into the distance. Then, with a shared nod, they unlocked the door and slipped out into the alleyway. Every step was cautious and deliberate, each member of the group hyper-aware of their surroundings, ears straining for any telltale signs of danger. "Stay close," Kip muttered, his voice barely audible. His grip tightened around the hammer, its reassuring weight a small comfort against the unknown terrors that lurked in the shadows. Their progress was slow but steady. The blocks stretched on endlessly as they moved in a tense silence, their nerves frayed and fraying further with each passing moment. It felt like hours before they finally reached the next block, only to find it mercifully devoid of undead. Thank God. Skylar breathed, her shoulders sagging with relief. A clear path, at least for now. Let's not waste any time, Kip urged, his voice low and urgent. We need to get to that store and back to the flotilla as quickly as possible. With renewed determination, the group pressed on, each acutely aware of the weight of their mission and the consequences of failure. With each step, Kip felt the urgency of their mission gnawing at him. They needed to move faster, and he knew it. Come on, he said, quickening his pace. We need to get in and out as quickly as possible. Kip's right. We can't afford to waste time. Skylar chimed in, her eyes darting through the desolate streets as they hurried along. Fine, Marcus grumbled, clearly still irritated by the previous exchange. But what if there's no food left in the store? What then? Then we'll have to figure something else out, won't we? Christian replied, his voice betraying a hint of frustration. There's no use worrying about it now. They continued onward, their small talk turning into a heated debate about alternative plans and hypothetical scenarios. As ideas were thrown around and shot down one by one, the tension between them grew thicker. Enough, Kip snapped, silencing the group. We're here. Ahead of them loomed the grocery store, its once inviting facade now marred by shattered windows and decaying walls. A horde of zombies shuffled aimlessly in the parking lot, their grotesque forms casting eerie shadows in the fading daylight. Shit, Marcus muttered under his breath, his gaze fixed on the undead throng. This is suicide. Maybe we should find another place, Christian suggested, his face pale and tense. There has to be something else nearby. Guys, we don't have many options, Kip said firmly, his eyes scanning the area for a suitable hiding spot. We need that food, or we're as good as dead anyway. Can't we just find a better fishing spot? Skylar asked, desperation creeping into her voice. There must be somewhere else we can go. Skylar, it takes a week to catch enough fish for everyone at the flotilla to have a single meal, Kip reminded her, his voice weary. That's not sustainable. This is our best shot. With that, he led them into a nearby building, its shadowy interior providing a temporary refuge from the dangers outside. The group huddled together, their breaths shallow and rapid as they watched the undead continue their aimless march through the parking lot. All right, Kip said, steeling himself for what was to come. We stick to the plan. We get in, grab what we can, and get out. No heroics, no unnecessary risks. Are we clear? Crystal, Skylar replied, her eyes narrowing with determination. Fine, Marcus conceded, though his reluctance was palpable. Let's do this, Christian said, his voice firm despite the fear etched on his face. As one, they prepared themselves for the harrowing task ahead, knowing full well that failure was not an option. Their very survival depended on their ability to navigate this nightmare, and they had no choice but to face it head-on. Kip studied the mob of zombies blocking their path to the grocery store, his mind racing for solution. His eyes darted between the undead and the map he held tightly in his hands. An idea sparked. Marcus, you still have bullets left? Kip inquired, his voice steady despite the tension in the air. Yeah, a few. Why? Marcus replied, incredulous. Okay, you take your gun and get on the other side of the mob. Fire off some shots to draw them away from the store so we can get inside, Kip explained, his tone urgent. Absolutely not, Marcus objected, clutching his weapon tighter. I'm not risking my life like that. Fine, Christian interjected, exasperated. Give me the gun. I'll be a man and do it. He held out his hand, his expression daring Marcus to refuse him. Marcus hesitated, his fingers still gripping the firearm. But after a tense moment, he relented and handed it over. Kip unfolded the map, pointing out the route Christian should take to reach the water safely. Once you've drawn them away, make a run for the water. It's just a quarter mile down this side street, Kip instructed. Find something to float on, and we'll pick you up when we're done. Christian nodded, determination etched across his face. He gave everybody a nod before leaving the comfort and safety of the building. He carefully crept through the side streets, careful to avoid any stray zombies. As he rounded the corner, he spotted one blocking his way. With a swift shove, he knocked it to the ground and fired a shot into its skull. The gunshot echoed through the desolate streets, immediately drawing the attention of the horde. Christian felt a mix of fear and satisfaction as they turned towards him. He raised the gun, firing a couple more rounds into the air before backing away slowly, keeping himself visible to the undead. "Come on, you bastards," he muttered under his breath, his heart pounding in his chest as adrenaline coursed through his veins. Christian's heavy breaths matched the pounding of his boots on the cracked pavement as he turned and started running. His large frame lumbered forward, sweat pouring down his face as he managed to put some distance between himself and the pursuing zombies. "Almost there," he panted, his legs screaming for rest. But he pushed on. He couldn't fail Kip and the others who were relying on him. Taking a sharp turn towards the water, Christian's heart sank as he saw a handful of zombies blocking his path. "Of course," he muttered, clenching his jaw. He couldn't afford to waste any more bullets, so he'd have to rely on sheer brute force. And despite his physical limitations, he was confident in his ability to bulldoze through these rotting obstacles. "All right, you sorry sacks of shit," he growled, picking up speed. Time to clear the way. As he neared the zombies, Christian lowered his shoulder, channeling all his weight and strength into the impact. The first zombie crumpled under the force, its skull cracking with a sickening crunch. He plowed through the next two, their limbs flailing like rag dolls as they were tossed aside by the burly man. "Is that all you got?" he snarled, adrenaline fueling his every move. But the exertion was taking its toll. His chest burned and his vision blurred momentarily before snapping back into focus. At last, the water's edge came into view, and just beyond it, salvation. A life vest lay abandoned on a dock, the bright orange fabric, a beacon of hope amidst the gray, desolate landscape. Wasting no time, Christian grabbed the vest, secured it tightly around his chest, and plunged into the cold water. The initial shock of the icy liquid was jarring, but Christian forced himself to kick and paddle away from the shore as the relentless zombies continued their pursuit. He felt his muscles protest, but he pushed on, driven by an overwhelming desire to survive. "Come on," he thought, watching the distance between him and the undead horde grow with each powerful stroke. Just a little further. Finally, he reached the deeper waters, where the depth would keep him safe from the grasping, rotting hands that sought to drag him under. Exhausted, Christian allowed himself a moment to catch his breath, the icy water numbing his aching body. "Made it," he whispered, more to reassure himself than anything else. The sun glinted off the water's surface as he floated there, the life vest keeping him buoyant. As he looked back at the shoreline, now teeming with frustrated zombies, he couldn't help the small, triumphant smile that tugged at the corner of his lips. "See you in hell, bastards," he muttered, knowing that Kip and the others would come for him soon. Until then, he'd stay afloat, defying the odds and proving once again that no matter what this new world threw at him, Christian would always find a way to fight back. Meanwhile, Kip looked out towards the store, the adrenaline surging through his veins as he watched the mob of undead creatures shamble away from the grocery store. Skylar's breaths were labored, her eyes darting between Kip and Marcus as they exchanged a determined glance. "Let's move," Kip whispered, his voice tense with urgency. The trio broke from cover, sprinting across the open parking lot, their sneakers pounding against the cracked asphalt. As they reached the store entrance, Kip's face fell when he found the doors locked. He tried to pry them open, but it was futile. "Damn it," Marcus muttered, his frustration boiling over. "We need to get in there." His eyes met Kip's, both men understanding what needed to be done. "All right, let's do this," Kip said, gripping his baseball bat tightly. With a nod, Marcus and Kip swung their bats at the glass doors, the sound of shattering glass echoing through the empty parking lot. The noise drew the attention of some lingering zombies, their dead eyes fixating on the group with ravenous hunger. "Come on," Skylar urged, her voice laced with fear. Once the hole was large enough, the three of them climbed through, wincing as shards of glass scraped their skin. Inside, Skylar quickly grabbed a shopping cart, pushing it in front of the broken entrance in an attempt to buy them a few precious moments. "Okay, we're in," Kip breathed, his eyes scanning the dimly lit store. "We don't have much time." "Right," Marcus agreed, his eyes narrowing in determination. "Let's grab what we can and get the hell out of here." As the trio moved through the store, Kip couldn't help but feel a twinge of guilt for putting Christian in such a dangerous situation. He shook his head, trying to push the thought away. "We have to make this count," he muttered under his breath, more to himself than anyone else. "Trust me, we will," Skylar said, her voice resolute. "Marcus, Skylar, find some strong bags and head to the canned goods section," Kip ordered, his voice firm but hushed. "I'll make sure we're alone in here." "Got it," Marcus muttered, his eyes still darting nervously towards the makeshift barricade. "Stay alert," Skylar whispered, her eyes meeting Kip's with a steely determination. Kip nodded and hurried through the top aisle of the store, hoping that they were indeed alone in the store. He glanced down each aisle, taking in the toppled shelves and scattered merchandise. There were no signs of movement or any lurking undead. But he couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. He quickened his pace, his breaths coming faster now. "Okay, all clear," Kip announced quietly as he joined Marcus and Skylar in the canned goods aisle. The two had already started filling sturdy bags with cans of vegetables, fruits, and soups. Kip grabbed a bag and began adding boxes of dried pasta, his fingers trembling slightly as he worked. "Think this will be enough?" Skylar asked, her voice barely audible. "Let's hope so," Kip replied, his mind working overtime, trying to calculate how long their haul would last them. He knew they couldn't afford to waste any more time. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the store, making them all jump. Kip's heart felt like it was going to burst through his chest as he sprinted back toward the entrance, gripping his baseball bat tightly. "Damn it," he cursed under his breath as he saw the glass panel they'd broken now completely shattered, leaving a gaping hole for dozens of zombies to pour through. Their rotting faces contorted in hunger, limbs reaching out desperately, as if sensing their prey. "Guys, we need to move. Now," Kip shouted, fear and urgency gripping his voice. "Shit, they're in." Marcus's voice trembled as the reality of their situation set in. "Go, go, go," Skylar urged, her eyes wide with panic. Kip's mind raced. He knew they couldn't afford to leave any of the supplies behind. Christian's sacrifice would be for nothing if they did. But facing a horde of zombies wasn't an option either. They had to move fast, stay focused, and above all, survive. Kip surveyed the growing mob of zombies, their gnarled hands and twisted faces, a stark reminder of the danger they faced. He couldn't help but think of Christian out there on his own, trying to lure the undead away from them. The least Kip could do was buy them some time. Gritting his teeth, Kip grabbed a nearby shopping cart and shoved it toward the leading edge of the horde. The cart toppled over, creating a small obstacle that momentarily stalled the ravenous creatures. It wasn't much, but every second counted. "Guys, we gotta go," Kip called out, panting as he rejoined Marcus and Skylar. Their eyes met, each one understanding the gravity of their situation. "Christ, this is heavy," Marcus grunted, struggling under the weight of their food supply. "Here, put everything in this cart," Skylar suggested, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. "I'll push. You guys fight." "Good idea," Kip agreed, dumping his load into the cart alongside Marcus. With their burdens now consolidated, the group made haste toward the back of the building, the sound of shattering glass and guttural moans urging them forward. "Think we can make it?" Marcus asked between breaths, gripping his baseball bat tightly. "We have to," Kip replied, his mind racing with possible escape routes. He knew Skylar was strong, but pushing the loaded cart while fending off zombies wouldn't be easy, even for her. "Should have just listened to me," Marcus muttered, his tone laced with bitterness. "Save it," Skylar snapped, her fiery determination cutting through the tension. "We need to focus on getting out of here alive." As they approached the back door, Kip couldn't help but feel a simmering anger toward Marcus for constantly undermining him. But now wasn't the time for conflict. They needed to work together if they wanted to survive. "All right, deep breaths," Kip said, trying to calm his nerves as he yanked open the door. "Let's go." The trio stepped into the dimly lit back alley, their hearts pounding like drums in their chests. They knew that every moment spent out in the open was another moment closer to danger. But they had no choice. It was either face the horde or starve. "Come on, let's move," Kip ordered, his voice firm yet reassuring. The sunlight seemed to mock them as it filtered through the overcast sky, casting a harsh glare on the empty loading dock parking lot. Kip felt a fleeting sense of relief as they pushed the cart around the side of the building. He caught a glimpse of the zombies still struggling through the shattered storefront window and shuddered. They had come too close for comfort. "Keep moving," he whispered, his voice barely audible. The others nodded, their eyes darting from side to side, scanning for any danger that might lurk in the shadows. As they crept up the road, Kip's mind raced with thoughts of Christian. Had he made it to the water safely? Would they be able to pick him up in time? Those questions gnawed at his conscience, but there was no turning back now. "Feels too quiet," Marcus muttered, breaking the silence. His grip tightened on the handle of his bat, knuckles turning white. "Let's just be grateful for that," Skylar replied, her voice strained as she pushed the heavy cart. "We need to get back to the boat and find Christian." Kip nodded, swallowing hard. They continued up the road, every rustle of leaves or distant groan setting their nerves on edge. Time seemed to slow down, each step taking an eternity. Finally, the familiar sight of their boat came into view, moored by the riverbank. Kip felt his chest tighten with anticipation. They hurriedly loaded the food on board, doing quick inspections to ensure nothing crucial was damaged in their haste. "Should give us a couple more weeks if we're careful," Kip said, trying to sound reassuring, "and we need to find a new fishing spot." They cast off, the boat cutting through the murky water as they scanned the lake for any sign of Christian. The world seemed to hold its breath along with them, the only sound the soft lapping of waves against the boat's hull. "Over there," Skylar shouted, pointing to a speck in the water. As they drew closer, Kip could see the unmistakable figure of Christian, bobbing in the water and clutching a life vest. "Christian!" Marcus called out, relief evident in his voice. "Hang on, we're coming!" They pulled him out of the water, shivering and pale but alive. Kip couldn't help but feel a surge of pride at their teamwork and determination. They had defied the odds and survived another day in this hellish world. "Thought I was a goner," Christian murmured, his teeth chattering as they wrapped him in blankets, trying to warm him up. "Thanks, guys. Couldn't leave you behind," Kip said, clapping Christian on the shoulder. As they headed back towards the flotilla, Kip's thoughts turned once more towards the future. They had food and each other. But how long could they keep going like this? The answer eluded him, slipping away like water through his fingers. As the boat nudged against the makeshift dock of the flotilla, Kip caught sight of Isabel's anxious face among the waiting group. Her eyes lit up when she saw him, her relief palpable even from a distance. He felt an unexpected warmth spread through his chest, chasing away the lingering chill that clung to his bones. "Kip!" Isabel called out as he stepped onto the dock, her voice trembling with emotion. She rushed forward, throwing her arms around him in a tight embrace. For a moment, all the horrors of the world seemed to fade away, replaced by the simple comfort of her touch. "Hey," Kip whispered into her ear. "I'm okay. We got the food and everybody's safe too." Isabel pulled back, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "I know. It's hard not to worry, you know." "Believe me, I get it," Kip replied, his hand finding hers and giving it a reassuring squeeze. "But we're still here, still fighting. That's what matters." "Speaking of fighting," Isabel hesitated, biting her lip, "there's someone you need to talk to. They've been trying to reach us on the radio while you were gone." Kip frowned but nodded, curious about this unexpected development. Together, they made their way to the boat with the CB radio, the rest of the group following close behind. Marcus slipped into the small cabin, his expression one of guarded curiosity as he picked up the microphone. "This is Marcus from the flotilla on the lake. Who am I talking to?" "Call me Gideon," came the reply. The man's voice tinged with static but clear enough to understand. "How many survivors do you have?" 25, Marcus answered, his eyes flicking to Kip for a moment before returning to the radio. "What do you want?" "Head to South Fox Island," Gideon instructed, his tone firm but not unkind. "There's a small group of survivors here already, and we could use the extra manpower." Kip exchanged a glance with Isabel, his mind racing as he weighed the risks against the potential rewards. A new location could mean a fresh start. But at what cost? He could feel the uncertainty gnawing at him, yet the prospect of finding sanctuary was undeniably alluring. "South Fox Island?" Marcus echoed, skepticism dripping from his words. "Why should we trust you?" "Because you don't have many other options," Gideon replied bluntly. "We're surviving here, and you could be too. But it's your choice." The line went silent, leaving Kip and the others to consider their next move. As they stood there, huddled around the radio, Kip knew that whatever decision they made, they had to make it together. United, they just might stand a chance against the nightmare that now ruled the world. Huddled together on the deck of their makeshift flotilla, Kip and the others weighed Gideon's proposal. The silence hung heavy with anticipation, like the calm before a storm. "All right," Kip finally said, breaking the suspense. "We'll head to South Fox Island." He addressed the radio, his voice steady. "Gideon, it's going to take us a day or so to get there. Our boats are tied up, and we need to shift some fuel around." "Understood," Gideon's voice crackled back over the radio. "We'll be here. Stay safe." With that, they set about preparing for their journey. As the group dispersed, Kip felt Isabel's hand slip into his, her warmth grounding him amidst the uncertainty. Later, as the sun dipped toward the horizon, casting an orange glow across the water, Kip and Isabel stood on the bow of his boat. The waves lapped gently against the hull, their rhythm soothing like a lullaby. "Remember when we used to watch sunsets together back in Chicago?" Isabel reminisced, her eyes shining with nostalgia. Kip smiled, recalling those simpler times. "Feels like a lifetime ago, doesn't it?" "Sure does," she sighed, leaning against him. "What do you think we'll find on the island, Kip?" He shrugged, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. "I don't know what to expect," he admitted, "but hopefully no more zombies. That's good enough for me." "Me too," she agreed, her fingers tightening around his. "As long as we have each other, we can face whatever comes our way." The sun dipped lower in the sky, its rays of light stretching out across the water like a promise of hope. Kip and Isabel stood together, their hearts filled with determination, ready to face whatever unknowns awaited them on South Fox Island. After all, they were survivors, and that was all that mattered now. This is the end of part 3. Join us next time for more tales of the first month.